Welcome to our weekly reading where we explore all things astrological. We hope you're doing really well and staying safe out there. From our two different points of view in two different locations in the world, we bring to you a unique astrological perspective on what is happening right now across the globe. So here we go. Hi everybody, this is Diana in LA and Cary in the UK, and here we are with this week's stars. And boy, what a week it's been. And we are pretty much exhausted from it. All around, to everybody I speak with, everybody's tired. And there's more to come. So batten down the hatches, because we have another week coming of more intensity, more squeeze, more extrusion. We got a full moon on top of it all. And Mercury moves into Scorpio tomorrow, actually Sunday. And so we've got quite a doozy of a week again, where we get to work with these energies and start to use them in a way that's productive, not destructive. If I have some advice, it's be mindful in your communications with the people closest to you in your life. It really is important this week to come together rather than be shattered by the outer circumstances. So be nice to each other. Venus is trying Mars today, tomorrow, Monday. We're going to feel it more and more Sunday, Monday, Tuesday even, and that will help. And so we'll be able to have conscious conversation with each other where we remember to love, not be afraid. So be strong with each other. And Cary, what are you seeing on your side of the world?
Last week we talked about the T-square and how it would be affecting the country, and everything we talked about happened. And it happened at the time that we said it would happen. So when we had the T-square, it's affected both our countries in many ways. What's happened now is Mercury's moved on. There isn't a T-square, but Saturn, the good news is Saturn's going direct. The bad news is Saturn is going to be squaring Mars exact. So we're not out of this just yet, but it's the start of progress. It's the start of moving away from this stellium, but it's very, very slow. And we've talked about this over the last few weeks, that this particular transit is having a huge effect on both our countries. So this week, it's going to be quite a challenging week, but it's going to be lightened up by two particular aspects. And the first aspect is Venus trining Mars. Anybody with a fire sign born between the 12th and 16th of their birth month will feel this dramatically, and for the days that it happens, it will be a really good positive aspect for you. In addition, on Wednesday, the moon conjuncts Neptune. So it's going to be a very dreamy day for water signs in particular. And everybody will feel that in a particular way, and it could be quite positive. But the undercurrent is very challenging at the moment.
That's good to say it that way, Cary. And there's so much going on. That Mars square Saturn going direct will act like a powder keg of tension being released. Also, meanwhile, when a planet as slow moving as Saturn is does go forward, it sort of goes forward in slow motion because it in a sense stops. It stops at 25 degrees Capricorn. See in your chart, what's at 25 degrees? Because in your life, when Saturn goes direct at 25 degrees Capricorn, it's going to highlight that number all around the chart in squares, sextiles, trines, oppositions, etc. And you could find yourself at an absolute standstill about that subject, depending on what house it's in and what planets are involved. And so it's powerful. And so as a world, though, we're experiencing the breakdown of structures as we've been discussing with this stellium. Saturn is finally moving forward after being retrograde for months. And now it's going to move forward in this very slow motion kind of way, while Mars is just slamming that intensity onto it all. So it could be extremely frustrating.
Right. If Saturn is conjunct your Sun, and being such an influential planet, if it touches any of these planets, the effect is quite huge because it's so slow moving. But the good news is that it's beginning to move away from the stellium.
What a stellium is are planets in the sky close together by degree, sometimes the exact degree. We've been literally watching that in the sky. You probably can see it from your house at night, where you see visibly in the sky Jupiter and Saturn conjunct in the sky, and Pluto is too far away to be able to see it, but it's there too, and lately it's been near the moon. And so those big lights you're seeing in the sky, the brightest lights that you can see, are Saturn and Jupiter. And so what's happening, and this is why it's good news, is they're starting to come apart. They're not sitting there like a little triumvirate together in a little package doing their work. They're starting to break up. And this will give some relief because we'll be able to breathe again, because there will be a sense of moving forward. But not this week. Even though it is going direct this week, it's going to be at a stationary point as it moves from backwards to forward motion. There's a point of what looks like stop. And so there's this kind of stop in the water. Everything pauses, and then gradually it begins to move forward again. So that's where we are.
That's right. And by having Mars squaring it, although it's standing still makes it quite a challenging time, but there's some much lighter aspects happening this week.
And not just challenging, extremely frustrating and opposing what our comfort zones are. Like, we are so uncomfortable and so frustrated this week because there's this push to go while meanwhile kind of stiff closure. And so somehow we've got to breathe our way through this week, because it is something. We are going to feel like we want to move and we cannot. It's like our hands are tied.
Using that as an analogy, in the UK, where our hands are tied, we're all going into lockdown. And that is systematic of Saturn being squaring with Mars. Some parts of the UK are in curfew. So it's still a very challenging, very important time, but it's the start of a positive movement forward, where eventually, as we mention every week, when it gets to the winter solstice, Saturn will be caught up by Jupiter, and both of them will be going into Aquarius, breaking up that stellium and making the start of something very positive.
So another thing that's happening this week is the full moon, of course. And we're in the solar month of Libra, which is the sign of peace, the sign of justice, the sign of balance. And what's the full moon in? Aries. So the Aries is combative, intense, strong-minded, forward-moving. And so here we are on this Thursday is the full moon, 2:05 in LA, 10:05 in the evening in the UK. And we're going to be, again, increasing in the intensity because it is an Aries full moon. But we're also going to be wide awake and really paying attention to things right now, because there is a sense of criticalness right now, of critical timings and things coming together and things being revealed and sort of the whole world all together waking up from a dream. Meanwhile, the day before, Wednesday, moon is conjunct Neptune. You said earlier that the moon conjunct Neptune is a dreamy kind of state. To me, it feels like waking up from a dream. We are wide awake and it's a hard day. and it's a hard week, and it's a hard time. And so we have to keep staying in an attitude of openness and kindness and compassion for ourselves through this, to get through it, and to be patient with each other in our families, and especially if you are in lockdown and you can't leave your house very often. There's a lot of infighting potentially, or disagreements because of these aspects. And so take more care than usual in your communications. Take more care to work things out and talk sweetly, mindfully, carefully with each other, these people that you love in your neighborhood and in your own home, and of course with each other in the broader sense of the world, because there's that much tension that we could attack each other. And divide and conquer is rule one of the art of war.
What alleviates a little bit of that is because Libra rules Venus, and Venus is trining Mars, that will alleviate that a little bit. Because the Sun being in Libra, and Libra ruling Venus, it's very important to note where Venus is. And Venus, favourably aspecting Mars in a trine, will also alleviate the square from Mars to Saturn. So everything you said is absolutely right. But the Venus aspect to Mars, the Venus trine to Mars during the week, is actually a really good way of alleviating the heaviness of the Mars squaring Saturn.
Right. And so what can happen is, if there are upset feelings within your families or with friendships, is you will have these beautiful aspects that will help to have those conversations, to make better understandings between what can seem like polarization. There, in our country, there's a lot of polarization now, more than there's ever been in my lifetime, where inside of families there's very different political positions, for instance. And this can be a source of constant irritation or agitation. And during this week, because of that, as you said, Venus trining Mars, a beautiful aspect of understanding, we can perhaps build bridges and agree to disagree, or to help each other realign with each other, so that at least we're not attacking each other while all of this is going on externally.
When we have the full moon in Aries, it's going to be alleviated by the effect of the Venus trining Mars, because as it moves away from the full moon, the moon will then be trining Venus, conjuncting Mars. So it's not going to be as heavy as it could be, because a full moon in Aries is quite a strong full moon transit.
Yes, with strong feelings and strong intensifications of people having a point of view and feeling strongly about it and wanting to convince others. But it's trining. So that will soften that and make it so that maybe we can even talk about have conversations that, even though there might be disagreement, there can also be mutual understanding.
So as the full moon moves away, eventually, it's still going to be in Aries, it's going to square the stellium. And it will culminate, this week will culminate with the moon conjunct Mars, square Saturn. So on Saturday, I would expect some very important news, because it always seems to be that both our governments come up with news on a Friday or on a Saturday, and it kind of makes sense that seems to be the last few Saturdays there's been some very strong transits, and moon conjunct Mars, square Saturn, people will really feel it on Saturday. So expect to hear some very important news about maybe coronavirus, maybe political decisions, but it's going to be a very important day.
And I would call this week the week of shock and awe.
As opposed to the week of doom and gloom.
Yes. Because there is so much forward motion again, and more news to come forward, more dissent, more secretiveness as Mercury is going into Scorpio, more things hidden. So there's so much going on. And so what I would remind you of is the importance of keeping your center through all of these changes that are happening in our world and in our lives, so that we can choose consciously as we move from news to news to news that are shocking, 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 and keep our balance, because part of being out of balance makes us more reactive and makes us part of the problem instead of being part of the solution. The more you stay in your center, the more you can keep your clarity and your discernment about what's even being heard, or about what you're understanding and your own reactions to it. So stay cool. In this Sun and Libra time, you can do it. This is a time of staying even, staying balanced, and even with that trigger of the full moon in Aries, it can be very illuminating if you are in your center.
And that's very good advice, because I think that these aspects are so challenging at the moment that we all have to keep our centre, because we're getting lots of information thrown at us from all different areas. But we have to assimilate that information and take that to ourselves, into ourselves, and just react to what we need from it.
So we've never really been in times like these before. So there's nothing to compare it to. Astrologically, we have never seen these kinds of aspects, or it's been hundreds, and sometimes for some of these aspects, 1,000 years. So we don't really know how to deal with this. So we have to have new eyes and be creative and be light on your feet as you move through these changes, and stay conscious through it all, so that we can manage our world better and ourselves better during it. So we wish you a good week, a conscious week of steadiness. Libra, think balance. We just moved into the autumnal equinox, so we're already in that thrust of equal day, equal night, equal right brain, equal left brain, as above, so below, as within, so without. And so we'll see you next week with another report of the stars from Diana and Cary. See you soon.
Take it easy, everybody. Be safe.